Alright, before we get down to business, I do want to define what a generation is for this video. I'm not defining it in a typical way, where say Gen 4 is like Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Diamond and Pearl. Basically, for any region, any game that takes place in that region, I am going to call the generation that region first appeared in. I know it's a little wordy, but I just want to get that out of the way because I know I am using a bit of a weird definition here. I also do have a few games I haven't played, and I will talk about those when they come up. There's not many, it's only a couple, but yeah, let's get right into it. And also, I just want to say, please consider liking and subscribing if you're here. I really do want to grow this channel. I have a lot of fun making videos, and consider joining my Patreon. It's $5 a month. You'll get access to my gaming logs. Besides that, there's not too much on there right now. It just is the best way to support me, and then obviously as it grows, I will add more to it. Hello everyone, I'm Ace Trainer CritterAlex. I'm Elite Four Champion CritterAlex. I'm Professor CritterAlex. I'm Rival CritterAlex. I'm Ninja Kid CritterAlex. I'm Juggler CritterAlex. I have over 1,200 games and a winning smile, and I'm going to be ranking every generation of Pokemon just based on my personal preference for them. So let's get right into it. Coming in at number 9 is Gen 4. And this comes with a huge asterisk that I have not played Platinum, and I think it fixes basically all of my issues with Gen 4. I have played Diamond and Pearl. I've never beat them because those games go so slow. Like, you walk really slow, the health bars move so slow, and then also just the selection of Pokemon is like pretty iffy. Like, you know, it's a well-known fact that I think it's Rapidash or Ponyta, whatever, is the only fire type you can catch in the entire Gen 4 region, so Sinnoh, as some people may call it. Unless you chose Infernape, who is one of the greatest starters of all time, you're just not going to have a fire type the whole game. And that is definitely a good thing about Gen 4, is its starters. I think overall, this troop is probably like my second or third favorite. I think maybe a few other generations stand out a tiny bit more, but Infernape's one of my favorite Pokemon. He's a fire monkey. That's just objectively awesome. Cynthia's from this generation, she's cool. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are like fine remakes. They are just Diamond and Pearl with like a tiny bit of tweaking happening, but not much. So yeah, all of my issues still stay. If they had been a remake of Platinum, I think Gen 4 would be way higher for me, but it's not. So that's just not how it goes. And I never beat Legends Arceus. It's like exciting at first, but at some point, I don't know, the game falls off like halfway through and it just kind of feels like a weird like Gmod creation with Pokemon. And obviously the trees are ugly. That's really my main issue. If I see one ugly tree in any game, I'm done. Don't even get me started on Kirby. That ugly tree that's always fighting. Okay, we need to... whatever. Coming in 8th place is Gen 9. I'm sitting here, I legit don't remember the name of the Gen 9 region. I should know it. I beat Violet, I played it. Why don't I like these games? The legendaries are bikes. It's a fine mechanic. Like, I get why they did it, but oh my goodness, like, that's so boring. I feel like Pokemon had been on a really strong streak of like designing Pokemon just around being in a certain place or in a certain location, and they kind of just stopped doing that with Gen 9. We got like 12 birds. We got like mouse Pokemon. We got like, you know, generic cat starter. None of these Pokemon really have much at all to do with the fact that the region's basically Spain. The open world aspect's nice. The game's like not fun to play, and also I do like the like some of the side characters and their stories that they go through. I think there is some interesting character writing in this game, which is not something we get a lot of in Pokemon, and also was not something our main character got in this game even. But, you know, some of those side characters are cool, and it is nice seeing them go through their whole little stories. Also, Penny's theme is like awesome. It's like a hard style like dance beat that's just so sick. There was a school mechanic in this game, right? I'm like not even sure. This was like, I think 3 Houses hype was still in the air. I mean, it was definitely post 3 Houses, but it was, people still like thought about that game. So there was a whole school mechanic. I don't think I ever went back to the school unless like you had to talk to someone. I don't think I did that once. I don't even know, like, could you do stuff in the school? Let me know, because I certainly didn't. I don't care about raid battles. They're just too much work. I think Gens 8 and 9 really did ruin competitive in a lot of ways, just with the raid battles and all that. I don't know. It just doesn't meld with me at all. And then obviously they both had, I mean, terrestrializing or whatever it's calling is a fine gimmick. We'll get into Gen 8's gimmick when we get to it. But yeah, Gen 9, not great. I think the weakest thing about this generation, besides obviously how buggy the games are, is the Pokemon designs. They're horrible, and they're not memorable at all. Coming in at number 7 is the aforementioned Gen 8, the Galar region. I actually do remember this one. Nice. Paldea, that was Gen 9. We got there. Okay, Gen 8, obviously that gym battle theme is awesome. There is no story, really. It's like you're in Britain, which I guess, you know, maybe it's fitting that there's no story. But you're in Britain, and you do gym battles, and then there's some evil guy that really likes Dynamaxing or something, and Dynamaxing is the worst thing, period. Maybe ever. Like, it's worse than disease, probably. Yeah, it's just what, your Pokemon get big? Like, coming off the high that was Mega Evolutions and Z Crystals for Gen 6 and 7, and having to adjust to Dynamaxing, which is nothing, it was rough. And it's also the first generation, and really only generation, I think, where the gimmick was, like, banned from competitive single player on Showdown. Like, Dynamaxing was just so poorly thought out that it just got banned from competitive and you couldn't use it at all, which was dumb because, I mean, it wasn't a dumb decision to do it, but it was dumb that it was designed in a way that made that have to happen, because it is fun playing with gimmicks in new generations. We did get Fat Pikachu and we did get very long Meowth from it, which are legendary, but, you know, besides that, there's not much here. Gen 8 really doesn't stand out. There are some fine designs, but I think Gen 8 also started to just decline in the quality of Pokemon designs, which I know, you know, since Gen like 5 that has been a thing people say, but I think Gen 8 and 9 really are when it started to show that they were kind of running out of ideas. Coming in at number 6 is the first Pokemon game I ever owned physically and beat that way, which is Gen 6. I have over 1,000 hours in Pokemon X. I think I've said that 3 or 4 times on this channel, so I don't hate this generation by any means. It just has some weird pacing, like the time in between, like, I think it's the first gym and the second gym, like the bug and the rock one, I'm pretty sure. You don't see a gym for a long time. Obviously the new Pokemon in this generation, there's like, what, 4 or 5 new Pokemon, and they don't stand out that much. They're not really the greatest designs. I don't know, Klefki is cool, Trevenant's cool, Greninja's there. Chestnut's cool, whatever. Like, it's not that interesting. There is some nice story elements here. I think AZ and the Floette are a nice touch, and I do think kind of that whole Norse thing that was going on with Xerneas and Yveltal is at least interesting to look into. And, you know, there are some cool, at least inspirations for this gen. Gen 6 also gave us the Fairy type, which is awesome, and I love it, and Mega Evolutions, which is, you know, basically the best gimmick Pokemon's ever done. You know, waiting for the new Mega Evolutions to get announced was like waiting for a new Smash character or something. It was very exciting and a very exciting time to be a Pokemon fan. I also think Gen 6 is when competitive peaked. Just the balance of the Pokemon that were available and Mega Evolutions existing and some of the worst gimmicks and weirder changes Nintendo started making, or the Pokemon company started making after this, weren't in effect yet. So you just got a huge roster of cool Pokemon to use in unique and cool ways. And I think that is really the mark of a good competitive generation for Pokemon. Coming in number 5 is the last of the modern generations, Gen 7. This one, I never know quite where to put it because it is such a mixed bag in a lot of ways. What I will get out of the way is that this generation has some of my favorite designs of Pokemon ever. There's just so many amazing ideas, so many weird little creatures in this. Togedemaru is my favorite Pokemon ever. It's like a round spike ball. That's awesome. That's really all I need to be satisfied. Comfey's awesome. Ribombey's awesome. I love the Alolan Pokemon, and that was the first generation where they started doing that, and I think that was a cool idea, and it helped the Pokemon company kind of use older ideas to make new ideas so that they could retread the same ground, but it was like they were doing it in a reasonable way that made sense in the lore. We got so many goofy designs from this I absolutely love. Alolan Exeggutor is such a big meme, and I'm such a fan of him. I have a plushie of him. Alolan Persian I really like because it's like a grumpy, weird looking cat, and there's a lot of those that are quite famous, so I don't know why people hated Alolan Persian so much. Let me know. But obviously the games of this generation are kind of rough. I like the trials and like just how they kind of changed up from the gym system. I think, you know, it was nice to stray away from that a little bit and just experiment. But because there are so many new things happening in these games, they end up being so hand-holdy, and you're just kind of walking from one cutscene to another of people explaining to you exactly where to go and exactly how to do what you need to do, which, you know, does not make for the most fun game. So I think, like, as a region, Gen 7 might be my favorite. Alola is such a cool place with such a cool cast of Pokemon and characters and a nice world to explore, but the games themselves are just very lacking in their design in a lot of ways. I also think Gen 7 competitive is right up there with Gen 6. I think Z moves were a great addition. They aren't as exciting as Megas, obviously, but balance-wise, they worked great, and they let you do some really cool things with Pokemon. Coming in number 4, and now these are a close rate. My 4 and 3 are close, and my 1 and 2 are close. But coming in number 4 is Gen 3. I think just because when I was growing up, Gen 3 was one of the first gens I played because it was really easy to emulate it. So I have a great memories with Emerald. I think the world is really cool. You know, the story's a little silly, but whatever. It was always kind of silly at this point in time. I didn't expect much from it. But I really like the pacing of these games. I don't think there's any weird like dips in action or anything. Like you're always either going to the next gym or you're dealing with one of the evil teams and trying not to let them awaken Groudon or Kyogre. I think also the design of these generations is super nice as well. A lot like Alola, it's just Hoenn is very colorful and bright, and the music is amazing. Little Root Town theme still like gets me emotional. It's like such a well-made song. I don't know, it really does feel like you're returning home or something. The Pokemon in this generation don't stand out to me too much, but yeah, I think Hoenn definitely goes off of its design. That gets it very far in my list. And also, I think Auras are the games I suggest to people if they want to get into Pokemon. Usually, I think they're the perfect mix of, you know, it's Hoenn, so it's a well-designed, well-thought-out region, but it's Gen 6, so it also has a lot of those good quality of life improvements as well as mega evolutions. So yeah, I think Auras really are great games if you want to get into Pokemon. Coming in at number 3 is Gen 1. I feel like people kind of hate on Gen 1, or they try to, but then when you kind of look at it, Gen 1 is just objectively awesome. It's just really great. It has so much charm. The pacing's really cool. I really like the mid-game where you can kind of just go where you want at your own speed and explore the kind of center of the region. It has some good tonal switch-ups with places like Lavender Town, where, you know, obviously that is a legendarily spooky little area. And the Pokemon of this generation are so quaint. It's like, let's give a goldfish a horn. And, you know, that kind of works. It's just fun. Or let's give a radish a face. Yeah, and I love all the all the many times we've gone to return to Gen 1, whether it be Fire Red and Leaf Green, or super solid remakes, or Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which are my favorite Switch Pokemon games. I think, you know, it's a simple experience, and you might not like the catching mechanic where you kind of have to throw the balls like Pokemon Go. But it is Gen 1, and the Pokemon follow you around if they try to, which is nice. And it kind of is nice that the games are so easy. It's like you can explore and just kind of make your team whatever you want. And it's super fun. It just seems like a very concise and fun way to experience Gen 1. And I think Gen 1 overall is just a very fun region to play, just based on its own merit. Even the original games, even though they do have some rough edges, it's a Game Boy game, and they're that easy to like go back to and actually get immersed in. That's amazing. Like Gen 1 is legitimately so well made. And, you know, I think maybe this was more of a thing last decade when I was coming into my Pokemon fandom. You can't hate on Gen 1ers. You know, there's a reason. Gen 1 is genuinely amazing. Like I said, my 1 and 2 spots do sometimes switch, but they generally are in this order. So, coming in number 2 is Gen 5. Black and White's so cool. You know, it has a more mature and, like, actual story than anything that came before it, which was always, like, the world's gonna be destroyed, or anything that came after it, which was a whole mixed bag of anything. Besides maybe Gen 7, which also has a pretty cool story, which I forgot to mention that, but Gen 7 does have a pretty cool story. I think Gen 5 by far has the best story. It's based on America, and that's awesome. I love America. No, I'm playing. And I like the designs. I think there was a silly time in Pokemon's life when we got Garbodor and Vanillux and all those fun little creatures, which I genuinely do like. I know they're pretty hated on, but they're funny, and I enjoy that. And then obviously, you know, these games have a little bit more of difficulty to them, and because of that, I think they're a little more engaging to play. In a lot of ways, I do like when Pokemon games are easy, because it lets me kind of explore and do what I want with my team. But in Gen 5, I think it fits the kind of more like mature feel to them. And I just really wish these games were better received at the time. Because, you know, either people were like, oh, Pokemon's over, this is the worst generation ever, or they ignored it because the 3DS was about to come out or was already out. And I think if these games got more attention, Pokemon would have went in a very different direction that probably would have been better for it, as it would have like grown up with its audience and, you know, evolved. Pun, I guess it's intended, whatever. But yeah, Gen 5 is awesome. The one drawback is the starters. I think this probably has the worst starters of any gen. Gen 7 starters are pretty bad too, I'd say. But yeah, Gen 5 starters are not great. Then coming in at number 1, if you could not guess what it is at this point, I don't know what to tell you. But it's Gen 2, Gold and Silver and Crystal, which I haven't really played Crystal, which is another blind spot for me, but obviously it doesn't matter too much here. But Gold and Silver are such special games to me. I think something about the art style of the Game Boy Color really works with that early, like, kind of more pastel aesthetic of Pokemon. I genuinely love how Gold and Silver, the OG Gold and Silver, look. They're so fun. Like, this generation does have a lot of weird kind of dead-end Pokemon that maybe should have evolutions that don't. But it also has Jumpluff and Ursaring and Feraligatr, like, and man, like, Generation 2 probably has maybe my favorite Pokemon besides Generation 7, but then it's pretty close. There isn't too much of a story. It's pretty much a Gen 1 thing of there's some vague bad guy plot going on, which is fine. I don't need a super cool story in my Pokemon games. It's appreciated, but it's not necessary. And yeah, I've been talking a lot about the originals. Heart Gold and Soul Silver are also super fun. It is nice that your Pokemon can follow you around, and obviously both these generations gave us a whole other way to replay Kanto, which is super cool to kind of go to a Pokemon region when it's not like the focus of the game. It's an interesting thing that they added into the games. And it really lets you go on a big journey with your team because you're not just going through one region, you're going through 2. That's just so cool. It's a little hard for me to put into words why I like Gen 2 so much. In a lot of ways, it really is just like a sequel to Gen 1. There's not too many fully new ideas here, besides like baby Pokemon, I guess, and breeding. Breeding was a big one. But yeah, there's something special about them. The old-timey kind of vibe that it's got going on, being, you know, based off more historical parts of Japan and parts of Japanese culture, is super cool. And it's a nice switch up from, you know, Kanto and everything that'll come after it as well. Except kind of Sinnoh, I guess, is also doing that. Especially Legends Arceus. Gen 2 is a super special generation to me. It is definitely my favorite generation. And yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what your guys' lists would be down in the comments. Please feel free to yell at me or tell me I'm cool and tell me you like my new haircut. I would appreciate all of that. And yeah, thank you for watching.